So, good morning, my brother.
Morning.
It's been a crazy weekend. The orange guy is in full effect. And he took peaceful riots, peaceful protests, and turned it into a riot situation. It's all manufactured by him.
Yeah.
And what's blowing my mind is just once again, this bad journalism. This guy is on the tarmac and he starts talking about it. And there was this question by this reporter that said, so if they keep harboring illegal aliens, see, questions like that.
Right.
If you ask that type of question in the courtroom, it's called leading. Dude, the bullshit has to stop. Man.
Well, some of it now, and I know what question you're alluding to. You know, Trump has done the administration, they are definitely doing their best to filter information and to present their set of alternative facts.
Yes.
Therefore, these people, as someone who considers himself a journalist, I want to be clear that some of those people, especially like that guy in the tarmac you were talking about who phrased that question, I think he was, I don't want to put him at the wrong organization, but it was like a OAN, Fox News type of journalist.
Yeah, it was Breitbart.
Breitbart. That's exactly who it was. It was Breitbart.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
These organizations are helping his propaganda campaign. And so that they are absolutely leading the witness, but they aren't, I don't consider them really journalists. I don't consider them news sources. They are propagandists. They are marketers. And, and it's not because, again, it's not because they're that's what they are. They're promoting, they're not asking legitimate questions. They're helping him get his story out.
No, they're not. But the problem with that, and you know it as well, you and I know they're not journalists, but his cult, his followers, and ordinary people who try to get the truth, who try to receive the facts. They don't know that. So when they keep saying that implication,
right,
it is hard to fight. That's what we were talking about before.
Right.
That right-wing media machine, that propaganda machine.
Right.
And then he's just trying to lead to this point where he just gets more power. This whole thing by saying that the immigrants are invading us and they're being, pushed by the radical left, and this thing we're calling Governor Newsom, new scum. This guy is so petty, so petulant. We got a child in the Oval Office. And once again, the GOP could get rid of this immediately. And they're not. And when you look back at the last time when the National Guards were deployed, you look at a situation like George Floyd. They came in there similar, but not so brazenly blatant in our face, and took a peaceful situation, antagonized the people, and it's blown up. And they're using that right now.
Well, what he wants to do, and as you know, and you'd mentioned to me earlier, and we were kind of texting back and forth, that this type of activity is outlined in Project 2025. What they want to do is put down any type of resistance to any policy positions of this administration. He wants to put them. He would rather just arrest those folks.
Yeah, he will.
Yeah. To quiet them by force. He doesn't. There's no such thing as free speech and open discourse and freedom of assembly in Trump's America. That's not what he wants. So what they are doing, you're absolutely right, in my opinion, and the opinion of most people who are objectively looking at this, is he is setting the stage, fueling the fire of discontent. He's trying to create this situation so that he can use the Insurrection Act, so he can have some level of martial law in this country so he can control everything.
Yeah, with the federalizing of the National Guards,
right.
that allowed him to bypass Governor Newsom. But the thing is this: the reason he did it is not the case. So what he's doing right now is unconstitutional.
Right.
Once again, another impeachable offense.
Right.
But we're dealing with a Congress being held by the GOP that is constantly lying. Mike Johnson was on all these shows this past weekend, and he keeps lying about this bill. He's saying it's going to save 1.5 trillion. Well, and then he takes the talking points of the orange guy. There's never been a bill like this. You're right. There hasn't been a bill so full of bullshit.
Right.
What really bothers me is how this is hurting us. They have no conscience, no moral, not one bit of a moral of morality in their system. They're just assholes.
And, yeah.
And it's hurting.
They're assholes and they're blatantly lying to people. You know, this is for, so the viewers out there will know I'm not, totally an intellectual. Today, or this weekend, while I was doing some other things, I got caught up in the vortex of bad Steven Seagal movies on Tubi, which I don't like watching Tubi because it's owned by Fox. I try to stay away. But I was actually doing a little so-called, at least I tell myself, research for something I was writing on the side. And I started seeing these like Steven Seagal movies with actors good actors like Dennis Hopper and other folks in them, but they're just terrible movies. I never knew they even existed. Anyway, I'm watching them and, they run ads on Tubi. Well, something we have talked about as far as the Democrats need to use other means to reach people, and we've talked about the ads that Donald Trump runs on mainstream or network television, where it's like, thank you, President Trump, for this, that. Well, what I saw on these Tubi ads are ads I haven't seen on mainstream ads. They're about the tax cut bill. And it's like, we saved President Trump's tax cuts. He has one guy who's an old vet who says that these tax cuts help him make ends meet. And then he has a working mother who says the same thing, not talking about the services that are being removed or anything like that. So I bring that up to say that this administration has no problem, not just spinning things, just blatantly lying about about things so they can get done what they need to get done.
That's their MO.
MO. So let me not get off track. I want to talk about this protest yesterday, because when it was happening in real time, when the National Guard, I turned on the news I will turn on CNN. Let me define my terms. I turned on CNN, and they were the National Guard had just kind of rolled out.
Gotcha.
And the protesters were holding up signs, and they were just standing there, and they were moving the protesters back because they wanted to clear a way, apparently, for some trucks to come through. So the protesters were moving back. Now, CNN had two angles. They had the correspondent on the ground, who was with the protesters, very calm. And they had their special guy who used to work for some agency, who was in law enforcement somehow, who was talking about all the logistics and the strategies he was observing from afar. They had like the drone shot up at the top.
Yeah, I was checking that.
Turned to MSNBC, similar coverage. Person on the ground, and then they were showing the drone, the aerial shot where they were showing just how many National Guard folks were and where the protesters were and where they were moving them back. I turned to Fox. Fox had this chick named Christina Coleman.
Ooh.
This black chick, reporter who was talking about just how while she is like,
she's starting the propaganda.
She's starting the propaganda. But
she's really into it.
Here's the thing. This is live, so I'm going from back and forth from channel to channel. If you were looking at this scene from Christina Coleman's point of view, what they were trying to, it was a madhouse. She was just breathless, running around.
Right.
They are trying to move these people back, and blah blah blah. And I'm watching it on the other network, and it's like nothing like that was it was happening, but not as she was describing it.
Yeah.
And then she said, then she goes into this big diatribe about they're trying to move this trucks back so they can bring in all of these sexual assault, these people who committed sexual assault and murder and blah, 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 blah.
Nerves.
And so then, so I'm like, if you're watching Fox, and that's where you get your news. If you're watching Fox, and you have, and you know, there's no reason for you not to believe that this is a madhouse going on out here. That this is like a situation that's going out of control, and that these people are trying to stop law enforcement from taking the dregs of society, you know, and putting them in custody.
Yeah.
So I was going back. I could not believe how different it was. And she was purposefully running back and forth through the crowd with this camera following her to make things more frenetic. And it wasn't that. This was before.
At all. It wasn't that.
It wasn't that. And I was
like, peaceful protest.
Yeah. And so I was like, this is just and the more as things get worse, you're going to see these contrasts get even larger. But for a news organization, which Fox, I mean, it's in their name, as they purport to be, we know that they're, you know, most of us believe
they're nonsense.
They're an entertainment propaganda show. But for them to be live from this situation and for them to report it in this manner was just totally not just irresponsible. It was evil. It was corrupt what they were doing.
Yeah.
You know, and if I were if I were somebody who had a mind from both sides, if I was with on the right, then I would be outraged by this. If I was somebody in LA on the left or it doesn't have to be on the left or right, who just had some sensibility and some feeling for those people that are being attacked by ICE, and I was the type of person who might want to go out to the protest, I would go with the mindset, I'm going out there to fight back. See, that's what I'm saying. Not going out there to participate. I'm going out there to fight back. And that's what they're trying to stoke.
Yeah.
And so as the day wore on, these things happened. You know, there were some vandalizing going on, you know, but
you always got a couple of people like that that take advantage of the situation.
Absolutely.
But you know what? It wouldn't have happened, Howard.
No.
If they didn't bring in the National Guard and just lit the fuse, just poured gasoline all over it. The people were doing what good people do.
Yes.
They were blocking ICE from trying to raid another spot with people working.
Yeah.
And people have had enough of it.
Right.
But the orange guy probably heard from Stephen Miller, probably got a call from Steve Bannon, probably got a call from Kevin, whatever the cat's name is with the Federalist Society, probably got a call. Okay, this is a good moment to go in there, throw your weight around, because it's a emergency situation, and let's blow it up. Let's make it bad. Right. Let's use rubber bullets. Let's show people. Let's antagonize them. I believe one woman got ran over by a horse. I got to look at the video again. I got to find some other shots. But one woman got shot in the back and in the legs with rubber bullets.
Right.
So they're throwing tear gas, and they're saying it's crazy. And this dude on the tarmac is just lying, and you have the propagandists saying it. Like, look, you're fighting and you're trying to get your message out. But when you have Homegirl with Fox doing what she did, remember, they got like 50 to 60% of the market. So you got all these people watching. Right. And then you're going to have all of these pro-black imposters, all these sites, Candace Owens, see, look at what they're doing.
Right.
Once again, other people that make me sick. It's hard to fight that. Oh, it really is. And I really think people should understand exactly what the occupant can and can't do. And I'm just waiting for the state of California to file an injunction, file a lawsuit against him for doing that. And Congress isn't speaking up. This is about our Constitution.
Right.
They're letting this guy do anything that he wants.
Right.
And what happened this weekend? People fighting the BS, doing something peaceful. And then the guy has something to say about no masks. People, like, he goes back to the George Floyd thing,
right?
When we're dealing with the mask and how they try to use that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, tell those ICE agents to take all those freaking masks, because I guarantee you, some of them were part of January the 6th.
Oh, sure.
I'm almost, sure. I can guarantee
sure.
you that, my man.
Well, that's the thing. There's so much, so much bad stuff. I mean, I don't, the hypocrisy is is unreal. Comparing this situation or these situations as far as these ICE protests in regard to January 6th and what was done to law enforcement during that type of situation. So it's almost pointing those things out. One of the things, unfortunately, that Trump has done is they have crossed so many lines that when things happen that are pretty outrageous, something else worse happens, and you have to kind of like overlook the first outrage. And and that's the thing, because the fact that they would even go to these lengths with the National Guard, with this particular set of protesters, and not go with the National Guard with January 6th he was president both times, it's just, it's ridiculous. I mean, the contrast is ridiculous. The irony, the hypocrisy is blatant.
Yeah, and he's more emboldened now.
Right.
He's definitely more emboldened.
Right.
Yeah.
But, we're focusing on so many other things that gets lost. Whereas, so what bothers me is when I was doing that, going back from channels, switching channels, stuff like that. And I was aware of this phenomenon ever since, while Fox was, it's always been this way. But like I said, as things get worse, as things get more outrageous, the contrasts get wider. The gulf between reality and their falsehood is just a chasm. And as you said, with them having a large market share, the majority of the market share that watches cable news, if this is your news source, if you're sitting there watching Christina Coleman run breathlessly through this crowd of people holding signs as if there's this huge threat that's about to happen, you would think that President Trump and the administration are justified in sending armed forces in there. And it's just not the case. The thing that, again, I wish people would take a step back and think for a minute that, I mean, we're talking about Los Angeles, California. First, we're talking about California. Fifth largest economy.
The fifth largest economy in the world.
And then you're talking about the population of Los Angeles and all those people in Los Angeles. They said we made multiple arrests. The last quota of arrests I saw was 27. I don't know what it was. But if you're telling me you had to send the National Guard to take care of something in LA and you made 27 arrests, then it wasn't worth the National Guard going.
Yeah, I want that many people. I mean, think about this. The LA riots at the Rodney King.
Right.
Man, gosh, it had to be at least 100 plus, maybe even more.
Right.
Especially with all the looting and all that was happening.
Right. And from some of the reporting I saw, the arrest-worthy behavior or some of the quote unquote violent behavior that happened, or just the fires and the loot and the vandalism, because they keep saying looting. I don't know of any looting.
I saw vandalism, but I didn't see any stores being broken.
But they want to throw that out there always. But the vandalism, all that. From the reporting and from actually just me watching it in the chronology of it, they said that most of that stuff, the crowd started reacting very negatively when the Los Angeles PD showed up.
Yes.
Because they were pissed because they got involved. That was the problem.
And you know what kind of upset me about that is that they got pissed because they got involved,
Right.
but that's not what you're hearing. You're hearing that the LA police deemed the riot to be out of control.
Right.
You know, they added to the narrative. So
Right.
I'm sitting there like, why would the mayor even allow them to say that? But it was more to it than that.
Sure.
It was basically they were trying to say, look, they're trying to get everything under control.
And they would have been, Karen Bass is in a precarious situation. I understand that. I mean, it's you're almost damned if you do and damned if you don't. But she, if she had not sent the LAPD in there, then they could have said, see, the mayor doesn't even care about you.
Yeah, they don't care. Look,
So you got to send the LAPD in there. The problem is, and Karen Bass knows this, and being from LA, and anyone who just paid attention to LA is, I don't care if you send the LAPD to a carnival. People in Los Angeles, especially in that part of Los Angeles, do not like the LAPD because of their history.
Reason to. And
they have reason to.
Yeah.
So, while they don't care for the National Guard being there, they don't really have beef with the National Guard other than don't come in here and try to regulate. But they got beef with LAPD. And if you just put LAPD in one spot for long enough in LA, in certain parts of LA, something's going to get out of hand. Something's going to jump off.
It is.
Just because that's who it is.
I mean, you're right. But you also got some guys that are in the LAPD that probably sympathize with the occupant. Absolutely. You know what I mean? We know the history of that. But what I'm looking at right now, you talked about the reporting by Fox. Mm-hmm. What can be done right now to kind of like calm things down, but to also show the manipulation by the orange guy? What can the DNC do?
Well, I believe one thing they could do is do a side by side, do exactly what we're talking about with visual aids, and say this. We just want to show you this, and you come to your own conclusion. This is what was happening at the same time on Fox News and what happened at the same time on CNN. And here's the problem: as a news organization and as a politician, nobody wants to. It's almost like you don't want to necessarily put your endorsement. They would have to put the caveat up there that we're just talking about this situation. They see the Democratic Party don't want to say CNN's telling you the right news. You don't want to say that. Just like CNN doesn't.
Wait, why not? CNN is off the chains.
I'll tell you why. Because everyone gets something wrong.
Okay. All right.
Everyone gets something wrong. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing about journalism. That's the other thing that where I get kind of pissed because retractions are printed all the time and people get stuff wrong. What makes you a real journalist? First thing, you do your best as a journalist to get the story right and to verify and to verify and to verify before you go out there with the story. But accidents happen. Stuff happens. So you have to be able to retract. You don't want to it's too precarious as a politician to say this is good, and then it used to be, but unless they're your propaganda source. See, that's the thing. See, Republicans do that about Fox News because they know Fox News is going to tell them the lie they want them to tell.
Right.
But at CNN, you don't want, again, as a news organization, I don't know, I'll say as a journalist, I would, it's a nice compliment to say, yeah, you can believe in Howard Fletcher's reporting. You can take that to the bank, but you don't want the endorsement. You want to be able to cover everybody. So while you think that, and you say, that's great, I might have a story next week that says that you were doing something you shouldn't have been doing. Right. So I don't want, I don't really want your endorsement other than to say that, that if you want to say what I just said, is to be true, I'll take that. But don't endorse me. So anyway, but they can do a side by side. Somebody,
they can do a side by side. But when it comes to CNN, I think they're also complicit. They're part of the problem And now they're not gonna, they're not gonna do a retraction on CNN unless the orange guy tells them to. They've already shown that. So when I look at these shows made to bring in ratings, I look at the continuing BS being allowed by Scott Jennings, Abby Phillips doing a poor job moderating. All of that is part of it.
Right.
So all of the people that are in front got this problem.
Absolutely.
And reporters get things wrong, but it's a difference between intentionally misleading people with information that you thought you had compared to, oh, damn. You know what? We reported about this yesterday. We got this particular aspect wrong.
Right.
We apologize.
Yeah.
None of that is happening now. MSNBC, I don't know what their approach is right now, but they seem to be trying to present things in a neutral, stale way. All I want from these journalists is to give people the facts. And when you look at the accusations that the orange guy is putting out there to make it justifiable for him to do that, if you don't nip the lies in the bud, if they don't call it out right there, then it keeps going. Like Pam Bondi, you got the some of the top assistant prosecutors after Abrego Garcia got back, and they put that indictment in. Right. You had one of the top assistant prosecutors resign in protest. Right. Pam Bondi is up there just straight lying. She talks about Abrego, then she talks about a child or a person in Virginia, MS-13, and she tries to bring it all together, and she's just talking bad. That right there is something that as a lawyer, in fact, as a U.S. attorney, it's almost illegal. I believe it violates some ethical norms that they have.
Yeah, it's not illegal, but what I wish they would point out more, I guess, to those who don't think about it, is what you just said. It's very, when she was reading, when she made that press conference about Garcia coming home, there were charges that were levied against them for illegally transporting people. Okay.
Did you hear the story with that? Did you hear?
Okay, no, I understand. It's a weak case.
Okay, all right.
I'm just saying he's charged with that. Mm-hmm. Then she proceeded to, and you very rarely, or if ever, saw this before, and I didn't get pointed out enough. She went on to all these allegations about.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that he did, that he talked about. Now that. I'll tell you why that's never done. It's first thing, it's unethical to do it.
Yeah.
The other thing is that most prosecutors who are working in who's really doing their job, you wouldn't want to publicly talk about an ongoing investigation.
Thank you. So
one journalist, which it got skipped over at the very end of that news conference, asked her to be clear. He's only being charged with the people, which was good. Of course, she smoothed over it and she ended the press conference after that. But see, that's all. She's complicit. And she's doing a terrible job at being what an attorney general should be. The attorney general of the United States should only be out there saying, we got to, whatever, Abrego Garcia here, he's being charged with X, Y, and Z. We are going to try to, prosecute him to the fullest extent of the law, but he will get his day in court. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. Right. But the whole case that they're trying to do, it was a warning. He was coming from, I believe, Ohio, went to pick some guys up to do some work. You see it all the time. Down the street, you got extended stays around. There are people that come from other places. They stay in extended stays for the week to make their money, to get the hustle on. And the cop gave him a warning. Right. That's the only thing they had. And I got people, when I was posting, saying, hey, look, Abrego's coming home. Yeah, I want to celebrate that. First thing people start saying is, well, not really. They got him facing charges, blah, blah, blah. My whole mindset was this. He's coming home. so he can go through due process. Let's celebrate this fact because he was in El Salvador in the prison first. So now he's back and he's going to get due process. And with those charges, that indictment, more than likely, they're going to be thrown out. And when you look at what Pam Bondi is doing, it's getting to a point where you have these attorneys for the DOJ going in there. Some of them are jeopardizing their law license. In fact, many of them are. And what Pam Bondi is doing, I believe there has been a formal complaint brought up against her. I mean, she's in a position where she could lose her bar license.
Right.
She could be disbarred because everything that she's doing just Violates all ethical norms.
But these people, most people, my sister's an attorney. I thought about law school at one time, but didn't want to read that many books. To put in the time I saw her put in. I have a lot of respect for lawyers. Most lawyers who go on and pass the bar exam and practice as lawyers have that's their guiding light is the law. Right. They believe in the law. Pam Bondi, from her actions, I don't know her, but this from her actions, I have to conclude that she and the people on her staff that are willing to present some of these bogus arguments in court do not have that type of respect or love or fidelity to the law. They are more encouraged or motated by power and what they think this is going to do for them. Now, somebody like Pam Bondi, I don't know her, so this is just going to be an assumption based on her behavior. I think for Pam Bondi, if she goes through this Trump administration thing, got disbarred, and then was a media figure on Fox News, I think she'd be all right with it. I mean, I don't think they care about the law. In fact, I think many of them look at the law, the current American law as in disdain. They have no respect for it.
They don't like it because it allows equality. They don't like that equality. They want to be on the high ground compared to everybody else.
Right. Yeah.
And they don't, like you said, they don't give a damn. Right. But there's something that I'm very concerned about. You have people every single day, everybody talked about Joe Biden, calling him Sleepy Joe and all that. But we never woke up every day wondering what has he done.
Oh, sure.
It's exhausting. So, I mean, what is going to be the ongoing, especially when you look at LA, the psychological impact, especially now with the military presence in there? I'm telling people, hey, everybody needs to chill out and just go home. We need to start over.
Right.
Because we can't feed into what this guy is doing, no matter how ticked off you are, or matter how stressed.
Right.
They're going to play that card.
Right. Well, I have to believe also, again, I didn't lose sight of the fact we're talking about one of the largest cities in the United States. Mm-hmm. The size of that protest was small. Okay. It was small. I don't know how many hundreds of people out there, but we're talking
about maybe 300 to 400 people.
We're talking about Los Angeles. Yeah.
So that's small.
It was small. If you were a politician giving a speech, you would be embarrassed at the size of that crowd. So it was small. Yeah. So, and I have to believe that most of the people out there, organizers, even people from the DNC and all, hopefully Karen Bass, hopefully the word on the street was, don't do anything. Mm-hmm. Don't do anything. So, and there's always going to be knuckleheads in the crowd, and there are always going to be people out there for the wrong reasons. And so in a city of hundreds of millions, and a city of multiple millions of people, a few hundred knuckleheads, and they weren't even all that, a few tens of knuckleheads out there just looking for an opportunity in which they can F the police and give it to the man is nothing. It was nothing. I mean, I think for the most part, people are doing what you say. That's what my point is. I think for the most part, I think a lot of people didn't show up when they heard the National Guard was going to be there. A lot of people did. No one.
And that's probably why the size stayed the way it was.
Right.
The crowd size stayed the way it was.
Correct.
Yeah.
Nobody. We're not. Most people. We're not stupid. Most people aren't going to go out there and give Donald Trump a freebie. You know what I mean? So, we just got to hope that we can keep the as you see, they will make the most out of the little bit they can get. So we still have to try to get those few people out there who want to stir up some mischief to chill. But I don't think that you're going to see this replicated as they hope in other cities, like where he was, Trump's talking about, we'll send them anywhere, and we'll, do that. Well, I just don't think you're going to, that's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I don't see that happening as well. But another thing with all of this is that he has this attack on everybody else's First Amendment rights.
Yeah.
He doesn't, he's like protesting. He's trying to act like it's illegal to tell him he's full of shit.
Right.
Everybody's First Amendment right, freedom of assembly. And when he said, we'll send them anywhere, that's basically to deter people from doing it again. But as you stated, it was a small crowd. But with all the things that are happening to people of races that actually voted for this guy, and I never could understand why, because he's blatantly saying that calling Mexico, any country with people of color, shithole countries, and bringing over South Afrikaners.
Yeah.
So where should we as a community, where should we put our focus right now in combating all of this?
Well, other than trying to get clear and correct information out there, it's going to sound like the old drumbeat, but we live in a democracy. It's got to be, you're going to have to put other people in power. My concern, as I've said several times since January 20th, is I am most concerned that this guy isn't going to make it almost impossible for us to have a fair election in this country. That's my concern. But what the focus should be on, that people have to understand, that whether you want to be a politician or not, whether you want to watch the news constantly, whether you want to do whatever, our society is a participatory society. You have to make sure that the people you entrust to run your government are going to, at your best ability, you can never predict, are going to do the right things. I think it was very obvious in this case. See, that, you can vote for somebody who misleads you, and you thought one thing and another thing was going to happen. But I don't see how anyone can say they're misled by Trump. I just don't, because I think his stuff wears the stuff on his sleeve.
Yeah, that's willful ignorance.
It's willful ignorance. So I think the main thing is that especially young people, to tell them is this: let's use this as a lesson, if we have that luxury to still do that. That you don't have the luxury to say, okay, well, whatever will happen, I'll just deal with it, or I'm not going to vote, or I'm not going to participate in this process of deciding who's going to manage and make decisions on our behalf for this country. Because as you can hopefully see now, this is what they do. When they say they're lawmakers and they're making decisions for the country, this is exactly what they do.
Right. A friend of mine says sometimes things like this are needed because people don't know. People are a little complacent in the way they live. It's like after Obama was in office.
Right.
People didn't see, I don't know why brothers didn't see the threat in this guy, but they got everybody hating Hillary.
Yeah.
They had so many people hating Hillary, but they're not listening. When people say they're concerned about certain things, when they say they're concerned about their money, all of that, go back to, like they keep saying this thing about tax cuts, tax cuts. They need to say, so whoever's interviewing them needs to say, well, you do have tax cuts for the rich, and they are substantial, even for corporations. But in terms of tax breaks for the regular person, they're basically non-existent in this bill.
Right.
That is something that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And that's what we're fighting.
Right.
Every single day. So it's now at a point where you have this notion where they need to protect the public safety. But in actuality, they are attacking all of our civil liberties.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to go just to talk about those tax cuts, but they need to talk about, no one likes it, and I'm not saying this is the right verbiage or terminology to use. It's a sticky subject, but they need to they need to somehow wrap tax increases for the wealthy up in patriotism. They need to say this with these people we need to raise taxes on the wealthy. See, so many times it seemed like it's a punitive situation. Like they need to pay their fair share. We're going to punish them. They got so much money, they don't need it. We're going to take it from them. That's not what it's about. What it's about is that we have this deficit. We have these things, these services that we need to fund in order to run our country in a smooth manner, to be where we are. And therefore, we need to rely on the richest among us to help us be as the strong country that we are.
Right. They're part of this country as well. Absolutely. Yeah, they benefit as well. And going back to what you said about their fair share. See, somebody said, well, they're already paying $3 million. I said, no, that's not the fair share.
Right.
We're talking about the percentage of their income.
Right.
If I'm paying, I don't know, 30% in taxes, and they're only paying 18%, 15%, that's not fair share.
Right.
At all.
Right.
And another thing, we can talk about this the next time as we continue this conversation, but I want to talk about Citizens United and lobbyists and these corporations and this thing to say that they have their freedom of speech. I've always said that's totally different. Yeah. And there's nobody that has truly fought it. You can't have a corporation being represented as one entity in the United States and going against the word of 20,000 people. Right. Those are some of the things that we need to fight as well. Yeah. And that type of approach by the GOP, getting people in their position to push their BS. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, they are, isn't that her name? Boebert. Yeah. They're not qualified to be in that position, but they have the numbers with them to get done what they want to get done. Yeah. And we're fighting that. Yeah. And it's hard to even move forward when we keep running into this nonsense. And then you got brothers that just don't want to vote because they say voting doesn't help, but yet our rights are being constantly rolled back.
Yeah. But I don't know how I don't know how to reach some of them. No. I mean, I don't know. I can understand. Okay, you can say, I don't think voting, we haven't got anything from voting, I'm not going to vote. Then you don't vote, and then stuff like this starts happening. If you cannot put two and two together that maybe I should have voted, I don't know how to reach you. I mean, I'm not saying they can't be reached. I just don't know what to do.
No, they can't be reached because they don't want to admit that they've been conned. See, that's the problem. Yeah, well. They have this wrong information that they heard from DeAndre down on the corner. Yeah. And they're just repeating it and they're doing it with the silver tongue and everybody's like, yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'm with, DeAndre be breaking it down. He be preaching facts. And then you have somebody like me comes along and says DeAndre is wrong as a motherfucker.
Right.
But we're not cool, Howard. See, we're not cool enough. See, we're not calling each other the N-word.
Yeah.
So, I've had a brother say to me, I can't trust a brother. They don't use the N-word. I said, all right, then you're not going to trust me then. Because that's like the dumbest crap I ever heard. But I hear stuff like that all the time. And it blows my mind, man. Yeah. We're in a bad situation. Yeah. Well, and I understand what you say about the elections. And I think that's one of the things that the DNC needs to be very verbal about. And they need to make sure that in all these states, once again, I talk about the town hall, but the people that they have in these states, the state's senators, the state congressmen, the delegates, all these people that are out there, they need to make sure that they are talking nonstop. In my opinion, a lot of these people need to do a daily briefing with a podcast, their own podcast. I don't care. But because I'm going to find it and I'm going to share it.
Right.
And I know you will share it.
They need to talk about tangible policies that are going to affect people's lives, or to do things directly. Like for your state, for Virginia, I was we get these ads in the morning, and you're having these elections right now for lieutenant governor and for or these political ads for state attorney and lieutenant governor. And there's this one brother, Rouse, I think is his name. I'm sure he's a great guy. A Democrat running for lieutenant governor. But the punchline of his commercial is, if you're coming for Virginia, Donald Trump, you got to come through me. What the fuck does that mean? What are you going to do Democrats have been running on that too long, on like, I'm going to go get Trump. I'm going to get, dude.
But you know where that comes from. You know where that comes from, him saying something like that. It comes from everybody saying, now that everything's messed up, Dems, you need to do something. Dems, you need to do something.
Right. Well,
so that's what this guy is doing. He's playing the tough man role.
Yeah, but he needs to tell us what you're going to do. That's my point. Not you can tell them what you're going to do, because people have to vote for something, change. So
that's one of the things that the Dems mess up on. They talk about what he's doing, which for using basic common sense, if you tell people this is what's happening, and you show it to them, and you connect the dots, you're like, okay, that should get them to realize that's not the choice.
Right.
This is a choice over here.
Right.
But we're not living in that society.
Yeah, well, we're living in the society right now. This is the other, and we'll talk about this next time maybe. But to go on the anti-Trump thing, where people are just anti-Trump, which I am, but it's to the point of just idiocracy. It's just idiocy. Like Elon Musk is having, he's like butting heads with Trump now, right? And I'm watching on mainstream or cable news, these people are up there talking about maybe Musk, could give to the Democrats, or can we get him?
I heard that. I'm
like, do y'all realize that Elon Musk is farther to the right than Trump? What he wants are more cuts. He doesn't want to increase the taxes.
He just don't want you taking out his EV mandate.
He don't want the EV
That's
mandate.
What he wants.
That's the EV mandate. But he also, and if he had that, he'd probably be quiet. But he wants also to cut more services. He wants to. He would cut. He's called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. He'd want to cut all of that stuff, because he's from where? That
shit was insane.
Yeah, where he's from? Where he's from? South. I'm telling you, his mentality, I believe, is South African mentality. Right. Either you got it or you don't. He's for the across the tracks. You all live in the dirt. I don't care. Or you can live where you're the rich people. Yeah. That's how what makes our country great. We're not that type of a country.
He got that Aryan brotherhood type. He's
got that. So all this talk about, again, it really makes me upset, because that your friend, enemy of my enemy is my friend. No, not always.
No.
Elon Musk is an enemy.
Yeah.
Period.
He's an enemy to the country.
Right.
And nobody's talking about what you and I were talking about. The danger of what he could do. I believe Musk even deactivated the orange guy's account on Twitter.
He might have.
The petulance, but once again, all the information that he has.
He is, well, now with all the information he has, this guy has, see, you know, I don't know what the numbers are with X and Twitter since he's had it. I think some of it's gone down since he is, but still X has millions upon millions of users. This guy runs the algorithm. Yeah. He can make it so, look, all his tweets get seen. Yeah. He can make it so, and he can control the information landscape in that social media realm.
Like William Randolph Hearst.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. So, so anyway, it just kind of, it frustrates me because as much as I dislike Donald Trump, what he stands for in his administration, we those of us who want things to change need to start pushing policies and reasons why they should change and go to whatever we wanted to go to, not just anti-Trump type of thing. Because that
you got to come through me.
That's a losing proposition.
It is.
That's a losing proposition. You know, and they're very good at putting out like, okay, you don't like me? Well, we just arrested this guy who is a satanic pedophile serial killer. Enough knuckleheads will go for that. Like, I'm protecting you from this bad stuff. Right. You might not have any food, but I'm protecting you from the bad stuff. And if you don't give them anything to vote for, that will win out. That fear campaign will win out.
Yeah. The biggest thing is that people, they got to stop thinking that just presenting people the information that's going to win them over. You got to put some drama to it in the same manner that the right does.
Well, you got to put drama to it, but you got to put some substance. So you got to give them something to vote for. That's all. You got to give them something to vote for.
Well, they're giving them something to vote for. They're giving them, making sure that they're keeping their rights, but nobody sees that.
Well, making sure they're keeping their rights. They don't see that, but this you can even look. I don't think this is a losing proposition, but you know, the GOP has done such a very good job of stigmatizing this, what I'm about to say, that the Dems are scared to touch it. The Democratic Party needs to play up social services and the safety net. They need to play that up.
You don't think they're doing that right now? You don't think it's been applied enough? What?
No, I don't think anyone's running on, we're going to increase food stamps. I don't think anyone's running on, we're going to increase your Medicaid benefits more than no one's talking about that, because then the right can say, oh, that's going to cost more. We're going to go more in a deficit. No, how are we going to pay for that? Oh, we can pay for that. What we're going to do is we're going to take those tax cuts away. And that the rich, for the rich who don't want to pay taxes on money they'll never live to spend. That their ancestors, that their descendants won't be able to spend. That's what they need to think. That's what they need to do. And this is what makes our country great. See, the right has been very good at saying people on social programs are freeloaders and they're lazy.
They do get that bullshit across.
Right, all that stuff. Yeah. Say, no, that's not the case. That's not the case at all. You know, and so and we're going to make sure that our programs are set up so that those types of cases, fraud cases, and all that will be eliminated. But they don't want to run on that because they'll be called socialists, and they should lean into that stuff. That's what Bernie Sanders has tried to do. I'm not saying Bernie Sanders is the messenger. He could be a messenger. I'm not saying Bernie Sanders is the guy because he's too old.
Right. But he does know how to get those messages across. But with Bernie Sanders, it's him being a socialist, which people are against, but they don't understand what socialism is. Correct. They don't understand that Elon Musk, he's basically a welfare kid. I mean, let's look at all the businesses, the contracts that he has. Those contracts have been keeping his companies afloat.
Yeah. His companies and all of the other companies and industries. and even the farmers and even all of them. And I'm not saying there's not a place for all of those subsidies. Sometimes they're necessary, but but people need to understand this is how the country works. We subsidize the farmers because we value the farmers, and sometimes we need to help them out financially so they can remain farmers or do something. It's the same thing with families. We need to, we want to keep people from starving to death or not being able to feed their children or become productive people in society. So we give them a social safety net. With the thought that eventually they'll get up on their feet. You know,
we should be helping. Like, what's the whole reason we're paying taxes? Why are we paying taxes? So we can have police, so we can have the military, so we can have roads, so we can have services that help people directly. We should have Medicare. We should have Medicaid. We should have the ACA. People are not seeing exactly how the country works because of the narratives that are being put in their face. Yeah. And people say, I pay taxes. Well, what do you pay taxes for? Have you ever asked somebody that? They're complaining and they're siding with the orange guy. I don't want my taxes going to illegal aliens receiving Social Security. How many times do you have to tell them? They do not receive Social Security. They don't have Social Security numbers. Anybody that is of color, they're saying that they're illegal aliens, and I'm telling brothers with that may speak that may be from Haiti, that may be from Dominican Republic. They can start confusing regular American citizens. Excuse me, native or citizens that were here during slavery, like us. They can start looking at us, grab me, say I'm from Haiti, grab me, say I'm from Nigeria, and deport me without this due process. And a lot of brothers are not getting that. And that is the thing that really scares me. When my kids are out now, I'm telling my son to look out for sheriffs, look out for police officers, talk about when you get pulled over, how to have the lights on in your car, the windows rolled down, your hands where they can see them. I am so nervous about all these young men. I look at all my son's teammates. I'm concerned about them. I tell them that. The kids in the neighborhood, I see kids walking by, and I try to say hello to them, especially when I see the young black kids. A couple of them know me. Hey, Mr. Couch. I'm like, hey, what's up? How you doing? Especially when I'm out front smoking my cigars. But I see them, I look at what's going on, and I think a lot of times when we have brothers who are not pointing out how wild this guy is, and then you got the black folks with the red hats on making excuses for him, it's a tough fight. It's a tough fight, and it's scary because I'm wondering who really has our back. Who will keep this from spiraling out of control? And that's probably the biggest, that's right now is probably the biggest fear that I have with all of this. How can we keep this from spiraling out of control? Because he's going to take advantage of every single thing, and he's creating it.
That's my concern. Like I said, I mean, right now, I guess I'm, hoping until we get to the midterms, but I don't even think, I just think he's going to, I don't know how we're going to survive as a country to get through 4 years of this guy. I would hope that these people will come to their senses and take him out of office. I don't think I doubt that's going to happen.
It's been only 6 months.
I know.
6 months of just pure hell.
Right.
It's exhausting, and that's part of the way they get you.
Right.
Wearing us down. It's like we're being tortured. But anyway, we're going to see what happens next, man. So next show, hopefully we can get into Citizens United. And we got a couple other things we're going to talk about later this week. But
I'm sure
that's it for today, my man.
I'm sure something else is going to happen.
Look, something's probably happening right now while we're talking. That's causing chaos. So let's just hope we can all stay calm, keep our heads, and fight the fight in a tactful way. Anyway.
All right.
Got my man Howard. I'm Couch, and we're out. See you later, people.
Peace.
Peace.